Alright, Luke Ronnestrand checking in for Thorne Brothers. Going to tell you about some of my favorite June Musky rod setups. This is probably the time of the year that I use like the widest variety of different rod lengths and actions, line weights, and probably fish the widest variety of lures. So here we go. It's probably the rod that gets the most work generally early in June. Is this is a Thorne Brothers custom Predator heavy bass rod, and I use this in an 8-foot length, and I throw a lot of small gliders with this rod and a lot of small walk the dog topwaters. And this is a rod that's got a lot of backbone, but it's got a nice soft tip, so it's got a kind of a springy tip to help with the action of these lures. And then I pair that with a Daiwa Coastal 200. It's a smaller reel, but for a smaller reel it's got a lot of power, 25 pounds of drag, and it's got this really cool 100mm double paddle handle. And that is kind of my main rod that I use when I'm casting for June Muskies, just because of the size of the lures and things like that. The second rod that I use is kind of in a similar vein, a lighter setup. This is a 9'5" medium heavy muskie, and this is a rod that's got a little bit more moderate action. It's really nice for smaller bucktails. It's also one of the best small swim bait rods you can use. Very castable, and just an absolute blast to catch muskies with. And again, I pair this up with the same reel that I use on my small jerkbait rod, just the Daiwa Coastal. Again, nice size, lots of power, fits in your hand really well, and just an awesome rod and reel for those, again, smaller swim baits and bucktails and that. Another really cool thing about these two setups and fishing in June with those small lures is like those rods are an absolute blast to catch fish with. You get a lot of fight, but yet you're not like overplaying the fish or anything like that. You literally feel every head shake, every kick of the tail. They're just awesome to fish with, and that's one thing I absolutely love about June fishing, is using those rods. Kind of the third setup that I use a lot of, and this one I use all year, but this is my walk the dog topwater rod. This is a 7'9" extra heavy Predator, and it's kind of a shame to cut a 10-foot rod down to 7'9", but that's kind of what you need with these lures. I pair this up with an 8-to-1 reel. You're working the lure with the rod, so it's nice to have a reel that's quick to pick up the slack. The other thing that I like to do is, the reel that I use is a Daiwa ProRex, and these come with a single paddle handle. But at Thorne Brothers we carry a Daiwa aftermarket double paddle handle. And I do really like that for these style lures. It really helps to, basically for the cadence of the lure, picking up line, kind of a big deal. And again, 80-pound line. And this is a rod that's in the boat all the time, but I definitely use the walk the dog topwaters a ton in June. Fourth rod that's in the lineup this time of the year, this is our heavy Thorne Brothers Predator. This is in a 9.5-foot, kind of your standard bucktail rod. This is the lightest bucktail rod that I'll carry, for the year, generally just for throwing these smaller baits. And I pair that up with a Daiwa ProRex, either 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 gear ratio. A lot of times we are burning these baits in the shallows, trying to get a reaction type strike. A lot of times when the fish are just kind of hanging around, sulking in that warm water, you definitely need to trigger them, and a 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 reel definitely helps with that. And then the last rod that's always in the boat, this is the 10-foot extra heavy Predator. I mean, this is like the gold standard in musky rods. Use this one for everything, but once we start getting out off those deeper edges and fishing in the open water, this is the lure to use with big rubber baits, swim baits, tubes, medusas, bulldogs, whatever you want to throw at them. And then again, pair that up with a 7-to-1 ProRex or Lexa T-Wing, and 80-pound line and a 130, 150-pound fluorocarbon leader. But again, that's kind of like the gold standard musky rods, and the one that gets used all year long, but definitely has a big role in June muskies. So that's kind of a wrap on the rods that I use. June is definitely the month that I carry the widest variety of rods, and again, it's one of my favorite times of the year to fish, just because of the wide variety of ways that you can catch these fish, and just kind of the diversity in the structures and the parts of the lake that you're fishing. But there it is. I guess my Fab 5.